And a left turn and a left downwind. Cessna over the threshold, coming up on the white dot, outer beyond the white dot, left turn first available. I got a high wind coming up on about a half-mile final, clear to land outer beyond. Traffic on the left face, you're following a Cessna down, low off your left. Square it up just a little bit, and then we're going to get you in. Start your descent, though. Start your descent on the base. Traffic on final, give me follow on base. Base traffic, start turning toward the numbers now. High wing coming up on quarter-mile final, take it all the way down to the green. Cessna taxiing on the green, expedite down to the next hard surface. Get me some speed, there you go, go fast. This is going to be good. I got traffic on a mile final. You're following traffic ahead and to your right. High wing coming up on the threshold. Take it all the way down to the green dot.
5 Charlie Sierra, 2 mile final.
A mile final, turn north, and we're going to just make you, we're going to bring you back around. Jet traffic's coming up on about a mile and a half final. Runway 9er clear to land.
Okay, all right. Let's listen up, guys. If you're on final for runway 9, I want you to offset to the left. I got a jet that's landing on runway 9. The jet's cleared to land runway 9 if you can make it. If not, just continue straight ahead. It looks like you're going around for the jet. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Oh, we have one right in front of us, sir.
Dragger. Let's see. What we got? A tricycle. Tricycle, put it down. Tricycle, put it down. Tricycle, put it down. Tail dragger. Down to the green dot, then a left turn. Short final here. You cleared land on 9 all the way to the white dot. Go down to the white dot. Find somebody to follow out here. Canard, just come to the runway, and I might have to just send you around. That'll be fine. And for the jet, you just want to stay in this pattern, or you want to go back out for an instrument approach?
Stay in a pattern, Charlie Sierra.
All right, just stay with me here for a minute. And my tail dragger, let's see, over the numbers, go down to the green. And Canard's going to have to go around. Canard, go around. Canard, go around. Canard, go around. And my high wing here over the runway, keep your airborne. Keep it airborne. You do not descend. Do not descend. You got a fast guy behind you. Do not descend. Here you go. Keep it airborne. Keep it airborne. As soon as the guy behind you gets slowed down, I'm going to put you down. So keep it airborne. The one that just passed the white dot, make a left turn on the hard surface. All right, my high wing tail dragger, you can put it down now. You can put it down now. And Charlie Sierra, let me get you about a mile off. Let's see, Charlie Sierra, I lost. There you are. Make a left-hand turn. I'll try to resequence you here on the downwinds. We'll see how it looks. Short final, you're clear to land runway 9 on the white dot. Clear to land on the white dot. There you go. And the tricycle left on the hard surface and follow the flagman. Welcome. Thanks for being part of the show. And let's see, just find somebody to follow out follow on the final. And as you get close to the runway, if it's not going to work, we're going to send you around and then try to resequence you. Now, who else got sent around that's not back on the downwind? The Canard?
Yeah, Canard.
All right, Canard, there's a Gulfstream up there that went around too. I just lost sight of him, but you're going to make kind of a left-hand turn and stay low. I think Charlie Sierra, what's your altitude?
3,200.
Okay, that'll be fine. Just maintain VFR. I don't know what else is up there above you. Probably most everybody's down here, so just make a left-hand turn. We'll try to get you back here.
Canard's got the jet in sight.
Okay, the RV, maybe an RV-10, whatever, here on final. Keep your speed up and go all the way down to the, aim for the green dot for me. Actually, keep your speed up. There's a guy behind you. Aim for the green dot, and I'm sure that's plenty of room for you to land on runway 9. You're clear to land on runway 9. Number 2, you're going to go down to the white dot. Follow the white dot. Actually, you know what? That's 1,500 feet. You're going to land at the white dot. The spacing looks adequate here. 2 guys on final. You're kind of tight there. Keep each other in sight, and you're going to aim for the white dot. If it's not going to work, we'll come up with a plan B. We might have to send you around. The second guy behind you out there in about a 2-mile final. Are you slow enough to be able to follow that guy in front of you? You need to go around. Well, I probably shouldn't ask that because I had about 5 guys answer me, so I should know better than that after 35 years, you would think, right? All right, so let me see. The guy who's number 1, it's number 1. What kind of airplane is he? An RV type. All right, RV type. Keep it airborne for me. Keep it airborne. And I got a fast guy behind you. The number 2 guy over the trees there. Go ahead and put it down on the numbers. Put it down on the numbers. My first guy just coming up on the numbers at the over the grass at the numbers. I want you to keep
T-minus 1 minute and counting.
Hello.
Four, 3, 2, 1.
Hello!
Hello.
Hello everybody, and welcome to this Thursday evening live stream. It's getting a bit windy out there, but it's going to get windier soon, and that's not related to Hamish and Darren, who've joined us tonight. More on those two a little bit later. But first of all, a big thank you to our sponsors, Sky Demon, without whom the live stream wouldn't be possible. Certainly not at this level, this high level of professionalism, clearly. But anyway, I don't know why I find that funny, but I do. Here's this week's Sky Demon tip for you.
Hi, I'm Hannah from Sky Demon, and this is another top tip.
In your logs library, you'll find the option to view a summary of all of your logs under the View All Flight Times button. Choose the date range and the timings you want to include in your summary. For example, you can show blocks times and engine times, in addition to your takeoff and landing times if they've been logged. A summary will then be generated, showing all of the logs within that period that you've saved in your cloud, so that you can easily copy the timings into your paper logbook. You can even email yourself a copy or print it out.
For more information about using Sky Demon, take a look at our user guide, which you can access from our website.
Well, it'd be bloody nice to have something in my logbook this time of year, which frankly at the moment.
That's a good function. I didn't know it did that. I knew it had kind of basic logs, but I didn't know there was the all of that to it. I was kind of expecting Hannah to say, and Tim will rate your flight based on some of the parameters that he's recorded.
It's not a bad idea, actually, is it? We could do that. No. Unfortunately, my logbook, I don't know about yours, but my logbook is pretty bereft of much flight at the moment. So I need to get that fixed as soon as the storm's gone, assuming there's an aeroplane left at the end of it. Anyway, you can
Just putting that out there. Anyone who's not noticed that Johnny has lost his beard, as Rich Salmon points out, the wind has blown it away.
Rich, we even
God
had a
knows what
comment.
tomorrow will bring then.
We had a comment from a viewer saying that Johnny looked much more serious and respectable without his beard as well.
Can't be having that.
I'm not sure that's entirely true either. But anyway, so quick explanation. You would have noticed that tonight there's six of us. We are joined by Hamish Mitchell and Darren Lewington. Hamish and Darren, I'm sure they were probably sober at the time, but at the Aviators Ball last November, bid to come along and be our guest presenters on the live stream. So they've already been guest presenters on the live stream extra, which takes place on Wednesday afternoons for club members only. If you're not a member, join now. And they've been in the rehearsal session at 5 o'clock today, and now they're here. So welcome, Hamish. Welcome, Darren. You've both been on before as guests. Now you're part of the presenter team for tonight. So remember,
no
be slick, be professional, just like that. Right, so you'll also notice that Simon Keeling's not here, which is probably a good thing because we couldn't fit him on the screen. But even so, congratulations on your solo again, Simon. And here, as I'm sure you'll want to know, is the weekend weather, which I'm guessing is going to feature a little bit of wind.
Well, good evening, everybody, and apologies for not being with you live this evening. It's all a little bit hectic in the weather world this evening, as you can probably imagine, with the onset of Storm Eunice overnight tonight and into tomorrow. So I do apologise in advance for not being with you live. But I think basically what we need to say is some horrible, horrible weather on the way. Hopefully you've got the aircraft tied down or hangared across England and Wales and Ireland, because, boy, are they going to need it. This is the chart for midday on Friday. This is Storm Eunice, showing itself with a couple of centres actually now, but I have to say, uncertainty over exactly the track of where this goes, whether it stays as a single centre or not, and also where the strongest of the winds are likely to be. At the moment, I think the strongest of the winds are going to be across Northern Ireland, coming down through Wales, into probably across the Midlands as well. So it's this sort of area. I think a second area of strong winds, southwest England, across southern England. Wouldn't be surprised with 100-mile-an-hour gusts across some coasts in the west, possibly across southern coasts as well, 80 to 90 miles an hour inland. And really that is strong enough to be causing some damage to trees and buildings. So a very serious story for Friday, which is take care, don't travel if you don't need to. Just be aware of what's going on. A red warning has been issued by the Met Office, and that basically doesn't happen every day. That's a very rare warning and means that there could be imminent danger to life because of flying debris in this situation. Across Scotland, we got some snow across central, southern parts of Scotland. Eventually, Storm Eunice is going to be moving out of the way, so that by Saturday, this is how we look. A second storm comes in, but it's not going to be as bad as Eunice was. Looks like it crosses northern Wales, central, southern parts of England. And that one brings, again, gale force winds across southern Wales, across southern parts of England, gusts of 60, perhaps even 70 miles an hour during the course of Saturday. Much better, though, as you can see again, across Scotland and across the far north of England as well. Far better conditions there. Lighter winds, generally north to northwesterly winds. Base is probably around 2,000 to 3,000 feet. Scattered showers around, but actually it looks pretty flyable for Scotland on Saturday. As I say, not so flyable further south with the wind and with that rain. And then on to Sunday. And for Sunday, again, another windy one. Fronts moving eastwards. Really, it's going to be non-flyable for all of us. Rain pushes east. Strong winds coming through. Gusts of 60 to 70 knots once again. Another one to get the hangars ready for the aircraft, to get the aircraft tied down. Because, boy, I think you are going to need it again on Sunday. So, pretty yucky. Not great for flying this weekend. Certainly want to be earning your brownie points. Or why not learn a little bit more about weather by going and have a look at weatherschool.co.uk. That's where you can do a pilot's guide to scutees online now. You can sign up straight away and do that course. Or why not get yourself booked in on Aviation Weather School Part 1 on the consecutive Saturday mornings of the 12th and 19th of March. Taught entirely online by me, and I'll show you how to spot those all important weather windows up to 5 days in advance and be able to better forecast yourself, so you can have more confidence in the weather and more confidence in your ability to be able to forecast the weather as well. You can book your place now at weatherschool.co.uk. Places are filling up on that course, so if you are thinking to come along, don't leave it too long before you get booked in. Okay, I will leave you with that for now. Have a fantastic weekend. Stay safe, won't you? This is certainly one to be watching from the comfort of a nice cosy fire and watching weather at its rawest. Okay, I'll leave you with that for now. Bye.
Thank you very much, Simon. That looks like it's going to be quite challenging, doesn't it?
Indeed.
Yep.
Carol De Sola says, good love store names. Looking forward to Stormy Ian, Cyclone Dave, Hurricane Ed, and Tornado Johnny.
You've heard about Johnny then, have you?
That's it. Also, Encryptor says, Cyclone Carol has a certain ring about it.
I think we need to move on before this gets out of hand.
Tornado Johnny sounds like an adult actor. That's the point.
Funny you should say that. Anyway, let's move on swiftly to the news. And there's big news that Dave's going to tell us about, which is the very first story. So, Dave, tell us all about it.
Well, the big news is we have a new issue of Flyer out this week. Here is the cover. The cover story is a test of the new Flight Design F2 that received EASA type certification in December. It's a two-seater and an airframe designed for 4 seats, so roomy and packed with a bunch of safety features. I have to say, it's also entering a very competitive marketplace. So anyway, good luck to them. New contributor Robbie Garrett is describing his journey to earning his instrument rating via the competency-based instrument rating route. And also, there's a Cadell. Yes, Paul Cadell had the most amazing January flying, meeting mates, seeing great sights from the air, and generally having a bunch of fun. And he talked about some of those days in the flying adventure. Further on, Top Gear, we review the new Garmin Pilot Watch, the Talk to the Hand D2 Pilot Watch. Plus, there's all the usual contributors and regular features. So Ian is showing off the watch. And here's a link to the latest issue, which is online now.
Excellent. I mean, does anyone in the general aviation world who's not an instructor or something. Does anyone fly more than Paul Cadell flies, do we think?
There are birds that fly less than Paul Cadell.
I think there probably are. I mean, seriously, he flies more and does more fun things. He's got more mates than, well, probably than me, basically. I don't know why that's got to change. Ed.
He does fly very slowly. But it gets him in the air for a long time.
Yeah, that's true. I suppose when a circuit takes a week, it takes a while, doesn't it? Yeah. But there you go. Ed, you got some hybrid news.
News from Italian manufacturer Tecnam. They announced that they made the first flight of their hybrid-powered P2010 H3PS aircraft. Well, maiden flight, it was actually on the 21st of December 2021, but they've only just made it public now. The parallel hybrid power plant uses a 104 kilowatt Rotax 915 IS, coupled to a Rolls-Royce 30 kilowatt electric motor. In total, that makes 134 kilowatts. That's about 180 horsepower, which is the same as the Lycoming IO360 that it replaces in the regular P2010. Tecnam's R&D director Fabio Russo says the H3PS isn't intended for market purposes, but successful flight tests demonstrate that this hybrid powertrain with combustion engine coupled with an electric motor can bear the same useful load as a traditional combustion engine. The 30 kilowatt electric motor installed in the Tecnam works as a starter motor to start the Rotax. During takeoff and climb, the motor also boosts thrust, and then in cruise you can just use the Rotax. And obviously, this comes with an efficiency increase. So with the same fuel tanks, you can go further. You get increased useful weight. So it's an interesting project. It's been on the go for quite a time, but Tecnam and the partners Rolls-Royce and Rotax say it's scalable. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on here. But it's kind of sensible, isn't it? Have a small motor for cruise, which you can run hard when you need it, but have an electric motor to boost the power for takeoff and climb.
I quite like the idea of a 30 kilowatt starter motor. You can spin that into taxi with that, can't you?
I'm guessing there's times when you only need to taxi, so you just run the starter motor.
Yeah. Cool. Johnny, I think you have a story of someone who looks almost as young as you do without a beard.
Yeah. If you let's flash a picture up. Where's he gone? Here we go. Oh, yeah. So that's not Zara having had a haircut. That's actually her brother. So he's 16 years old. He's called Mac, and he is going to try and beat Travis Ludlow's record for flying around the world, which Travis set last year. So Mac, he got his license age 15. Which I subsequently found out was in France. And he has actually done 2 transatlantic crossings with his dad, one in an RV-10, I think. And so he is going to be going around the world this way, which will flash up here. Oh, too many of us on it. So he's going to start in Bulgaria, and then he's going to fly south through Africa, stopping in places like the Congo, then Madagascar, then Mauritius. And then he's going north to Oman, Dubai, and then across Kazakhstan, across Russia, and then over the Bering Strait to Alaska, and then through the US, down into Mexico, and then back up the East Coast, through Canada, Greenland, Iceland, UK, and then back to Bulgaria. So it should be quite an interesting journey to follow. He's going to be going 1 month today, 17th of March. So we'll try and hopefully get him on the live stream to talk about it before he goes.
And he's got, if he's aiming to break Travis's record, I think Travis was 18 and something, wasn't he? So he's probably got at least 1.5 years to make that trip.
He can kick back, stop in Mauritius for a bit.
Yeah.
Hey, Dad, I'm in Mauritius. I'll see you next year. There's a lot of Russia in that trip, isn't there?
Big place.
Not somewhere I want to go at the moment, if it's me.
It could be a little bit tricky.
Oh, yeah. That's a very good point. Yeah.
Check the shark for the Ukrainian flag.
Yes.
Oh, well. Okay, so my news story now, and I've got some really, really exciting news for you in the form of There you go. It's what is it? Cap 1926. General requirements and guidance material for the use of RNAV substitution. It sounds really boring, and it's kind of, you could almost accuse it of being an outbreak of common sense at the CEA, although you wouldn't accuse it of being an outbreak of plain English, because when you try and read it, it's like, oh man. But anyway, basically that means that at last the CEA is joining the 20th century, and we can substitute ground aids, so VORs, NDBs, stuff like that, with GPS. So that means previously you couldn't really fly an approach if the missed approach involved holding an NDB, for example. But now you can, as long as it's in the database as a GPS overlay and you load it from that and you don't do the old OBS trick, then that's perfectly legal to do that. The only thing you can't do is you can't fly the final track. You can't use GPS for lateral guidance. So you can't fly a full NDB approach with an overlay, because that would be, that would be too radical, wouldn't it? But let's not complain about that. They've gone a long way, and they've got to where pretty much an awful lot of people were saying they should have been 5, 6, 7, 8. I can't remember. Does anyone remember when but not for RMP approaches?
Oh.
Approaches. What, are there RMP approaches with NDBs in them?
Yeah.
Are there?
Missed approaches. Gloucester's had the NDB as the missed approach.
But if it's code, well, anyway, if you want to know all about it, go and read 1926 yourself. But personally, I'm not going to be putting an ADF back in mine, and I'm going to be flying on my GPS. Thank you very much. So generally good news. What do you reckon then, Darren, ex-airport manager?
Yeah, could you go for a twin ADF approach or something?
They have a bunch of those in Russia, believe it or not. Could you imagine putting two ADFs in your airplane so you can fly a NDB crosscut type approach? Oh, what a joke. Darren, what do you reckon?
I need to look at the detail. I think basically it probably legitimizes what people have been doing for decades with procedures that have those RMP procedures that Paul mentioned that still have land-based nav aids in them. So yeah, there could potentially be a saving. We spent a lot of money to upgrade RMP for LPV, which obviously all went pear-shaped. So could be some benefits longer term for airport operators too.
Right. Anyway, good news, moving in the right direction. Who's got the dog? Hands up.
Yeah, that's the dog downstairs. Sorry.
That's okay. Darren's got the dog. Hamish, it's your story next. You're going to tell us all about air racing.
Yes, well, you've done a good feature in the magazine. The air racing, the 3 R's, the rules, records, and rallying. I go air racing, and it is good fun. And what we're trying to do is encourage more people to come air racing. And this is the same organisation, the Royal Air Club, that was running air races back in the 1920s. All the traditional races like the King's Cup, Schneider Trophy, they are still raced. And you get all sorts of airplanes racing them. You've had Chipmunks, Cessna 152s, a lot of RVs. You even get the occasional seaplane racing in it, which is quite fun to race in the Schneider. It's a handicapped race, so the races are handicapped, so the slowest person starts first, and that's usually me. And it's kind of like the rabbit in a greyhound race. I set off 3 days before everybody else, and they try and catch me before we cross the line. 4 or 5 laps over 100 miles. And the point is that this year we're trying to spread the net a bit wider, get more people involved. It's good. I mean, it is good fun. It's good flying. It will hone your skills. There's a good social life to it as well. And there is a beginners, try racing day at Popham on the 23rd and the 24th of April. So I would say if you fancy it, come along. There'll be some talks about what the rules are. Basically, fly fast, turn left. And we came second by 8 seconds. Okay, so that's still a sore point. It's good fun, and luckily I've managed to get some leave, so I'm hoping to come down, for that introductory day, 23rd, 24th of April. So come along and say hello, and give it a try. It pushes your flying skills. I think
we'll have to pop over to Popham and see you during that, and see what's going on.
You will. You will.
Excellent. Darren, I believe you've got a little bit of an update on what's going on at Gloucester at the moment. Not that you're, just make it clear, you're not the airport manager there anymore, sadly. But tell me, what's happening?
Gloucester, well, viewers might be familiar with the fact that there's been a lot of work going on the runways, and also the construction of this new business park on the north side of the airfield, which will actually close runway 1836 in the longer term, and also quite significantly impact on helicopter operations, which in itself will knock on to operations with fixed wing operations. So basically there's going to be reduced capacity, but on the plus side, 0422 has been resurfaced, and they're in the process now of resurfacing 0927. Both runways needed doing, and were always in the plan back when I was there 4 years ago, but the extent of the work that's going on 27 is really quite significant, and personally I think it's probably more than was ever needed. My big concern is they're going to be left with a great big bill that we won't be able to afford, and you'll see things like fees going up with constrained capacity and all the other bits and pieces go with it. So there's a positive story insofar as the runways are being resurfaced, but I really, really, really do hope they've done the maths properly, because it could go horribly wrong in a relatively short space of time. Nevertheless, there's work going on as we speak, and I think they're scheduled to finish in March, or the end of March, beginning of April time. There are some impacts now on operators. There are restrictions on movements, as you'd expect, with vehicles all over the place. The Jet Age Museum is going to have to close for a couple of weekends as well, temporarily, because they're using they're accessing the far end of the airfield through that site. So there's been a lot of communication, but then, well, there's been a lot of people. I think they're on their 5th ops director since I left 4 years ago, and it doesn't fill me with confidence. But hey, fingers crossed. Let's hope they've, as I say, done the maths and it all works out.
Assuming the prices don't suddenly go up just after the runways open, we should probably all head over there and christen 27 when it's all nice and shiny, and put a few dents in it if we can.
Well, there's lighting, but there's temporary lighting back on 0422 as well, which is the first time in nearly 30 years. In fact, when I started there, they'd just withdrawn the lighting on 22. So temporary lighting on 0422 isn't a bad thing. I think it might be tricky to keep it and put it in long term as a permanent feature. And I don't suppose the fire crew are very happy as they go out at 7:30 and collect all the lights in, and then go and put them out the next evening. But you know, there are some positives in there. But as I say, it just fills me with some concern.
Is there a grass runway there at all, Darren?
There is 0422 grass that is pretty short, just over 300 metres long. It was entirely coincidental that got put in shortly after I bought my share in the Cub. There was absolutely no connection there whatsoever. Unfortunately, it can't really be extended. It's a bit bumpy, but it's perfect for the Cub.
Yeah, I've landed on the grass runway a couple of times, and it's not the smoothest grass runway in the world, but it's absolutely fine. Anyway, right, next story. Thank you very much for that update. And don't take this the wrong way, but I hope you're wrong, and I hope it's all amazing.
Yeah, so do I.
But Dave, you got a story about something that doesn't need runways.
Yes, well, a company called Skyports, a drone operator, is setting up drone operations in London and Oban. This picture shows what it's planning to do in Oban, which is a drone operations and training hub. They're doing that with the local council. They're basing this idea on the fact that they've had, I quote here, successful flights for the NHS during the pandemic. That's what they're saying. In London, they've taken over the former Falcon heliport in East London, near to the Canary Wharf area, and it's now called the Skyports London heliport. And there they plan to operate both helicopters and a new breed of air taxis whenever they're available. But you kind of have to say that both of these aspirations will need the integration of drone flights with manned flights. Some sort of detect and avoid system will need to be fitted to the drones. In other words, and I know Hamish is going to come in a second, in other words, the CAA's got to stop faffing about with temporary danger areas and make it work. So, Hamish, what do you think?
Well, let's. I mean, I think we've all got to be. We all realise that drones are here to stay, and there are good uses for drones. But it takes me back to a year ago, when you've basically got drone companies and councils not consulting with the existing airspace users, and this aspect. At Oban, I think they've got Skyports have got £170,000 of government money, and as far as I'm aware, there's been no consultation with any of the flying clubs. Now, my view would be, I mean, you could put drones anywhere. You don't need to put them next to a runway where you've got airplanes. And this plan looks as if they're putting it on the east side of the runway, which means that every single flight is going to have to cross a runway. So, fine if they consult and have a respectful consultation with other flyers. But the experience over the last year, dealing with Skyports last year, I know people that dealt with wind racers up at Orkney, that the drone operators don't seem to have any respect for existing airspace users. And the CAA have failed, in my view, in their duty to sort of stand up for general aviation and other flyers, and have just put too much of a light touch on this. So, yeah, drones are here to stay. We've got to accept that, but there's got to be proper consultation. And as I think you said earlier, Dave, you've got to get detect and avoid into drones where you're having a mixed environment, and especially if you've got beyond visual line of sight drones. Just putting in temporary danger areas is not a solution, because that just excludes everybody from the area. So there's got to be consultation and there's got to be respect. And the Obans at the moment aren't good. I was speaking to a couple of the flying clubs at Oban today, and the council, they had a meeting with the council who didn't actually understand that there could be an issue with other airplanes. So there needs to be a bit of noise created about this to kind of bring them so that everybody's around the table.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know the trial that was going on during COVID, where Skyports set up a kind of some various temporary danger areas to ferry samples and whatever else it was ferrying? Did they make many flights? Do you know, or is that not known?
I haven't seen exactly how many flights they made. I think most of the flights were actually from Oban down to Loch Gilphead, and there were quite a few going across to Mull. But they could carry, I think, 3 kilograms. I don't know the nitty gritty of how many were cancelled because of weather. It was portrayed as being a big success because it's obviously it's proving a proof of concept. That's effectively what it was doing. I don't really think it was helping out with the COVID thing. But at the end of the day, it's here to stay. I mean, I was lucky enough. My flying buddy Derek and we took the RV8 up, and we got in touch with Skyports in the spirit of cooperation to try and work together. We took up Sky Echo, so we could pick up ADSB, and we could pick up the drone on Sky Echo. Derek was like the wizzo in the back, kind of saying where the drone was. We were communicating with the drone folk, and we flew some practice intercepts on it. So it shows that if there is an electronic conspicuity, if it's proven that the drones are actually transmitting electronic conspicuity, in that sense, there's you could be sharing airspace. I know that doesn't agree with all the there's a lot of people who don't think they should be carrying electronic conspicuity, but I think that's probably going to have to be the way forward of some fashion. Whatever one it is, I'm not really sure. But,
I think Canada just mandated ADSB, or said that they were about to mandate ADSB.
They did. It was above 12,500 feet. So,
okay.
Yeah, not in the usual GA areas.
No. No, indeed. Okay. Well, there you go. That's the end of the news. So some good stuff, some bad stuff, some interesting stuff, some weird stuff, and some unintelligible stuff. That's just talking about the CA report. Right. I think it's time for Johnny to. I'm not quite sure how we're going to run this. Let's see if we can make this work. Let's put Hamish up there for a second. Let's hit this button there. Johnny, I'll remove whoever's. Remove the Flyer TV over Dave Calder with face. Johnny,
Dave,
take it away, and then we'll swap over with Darren in a minute.
Yeah, right. Hamish, first thing I want to ask is operating float airplanes or any aircraft off the water. How do you go about doing it? Is there PPR? Do you have to ring owners or operate, lake operators?
Well, generally, it's much easier to do it in Scotland. We don't have the trespass law as such, and we've also got a lot more water. Any areas that were, maybe protected areas, it could be like water, bird sanctuaries, or there might be local restrictions, then you just don't go there. And if you know that there's neighbours that would get upset about it, you wouldn't touch them. But by and large, I can go pretty much anywhere. I'm based out at Prestwick. We do quite a lot of work down in the Galloway Hills, Loch Doon, down that neck of the woods. And, we book out because we're flying out of Prestwick, but I also go up north, Loch Lomond, Loch Awe, up to Mull and beyond. And really, I don't need to let anybody know that I'm coming. I think technically you need the permission of the landowner to come ashore. But quite often we're going to, pubs or hotels with beaches, or usually if you rock up somewhere, everybody comes along for a look because they're really quite excited to see it. So it's the essence of kind of freedom, being able to fly and research a place that's out in the middle of nowhere and go for a look.
Yeah. And do you do mainly kind of trial flights for people, or scenic tours for non-pilots, or is it how's the mix?
Generally, no. Although now we could be doing introductory flights. I think that's what it's classed as. We're doing Seaplane Ratings last year. So there's myself. I've got another two instructors, Stuart Houston and Nick Sibley, and Stuart's also an examiner. So we can do revalidations and renewals. I think last year we put 7 people through the full Seaplane Rating, and it can be a mix of yes. Duck. Last year we put 7 people through the Seaplane Rating. We get quite a few people coming back. They may have a rating and they want to go and revalidate it, doing 6 water takeoffs and landings every couple of years. And some people just want to come and we could go up to Mull, up to Glenforsa, stay overnight, or stay for a couple of nights, and go and do some adventure flying. And I mean, I've got a good list of places up here to go to. I mean, it is so much fun. We've got it's basically a 3-seat aeroplane, so you can get 3 normal-sized adults, and you can go and do about 2.5 hours flying, and back into Oban for fuel, because Oban now has fuel. Although it'll be interesting to see if you have to book slot times if the drones are flying. And that's round at Fingal's Cave, just to the west of Mull, on the island of Staffa. Generally, don't land on the sea because that's salty, and aluminium and salt don't work, and you get bigger waves. So generally, it's fresh water, but there's plenty of fresh water. I think the last count, there was over 300 possible landing sites.
Wow!
It's
so, what's involved in doing the rating?
You're looking at, I think it's a minimum of 8 hours, and you would go through the construction of the float plane, the floats, rudders, and then you would consider water types. So you've got glassy water. If there's no wind at all, the water's very glassy. You would think that would be the easiest situation. That's actually the most difficult because you've got no definition. You can't see the surface. It's like a mirror. So there's a technique for that. We would do normal circuits, reading the water, working out what the wind direction, the wind strength was, or indeed if the water was too rough to land on. You have rough water technique as well, crosswinds, because obviously on the water, the airplane will weathercock into wind like a boat, and you need a certain technique for dealing with crosswinds. And then once you're on the water, you decide what you want to do there. Are you going to a beach? Are you going onto a jetty? Are you going onto a mooring buoy? Or are you just going to shut down in the middle of the loch, for a pee or have a bit of fishing? But the best thing about it is you can find somewhere new to go to, research it on an Ordnance Survey map and a bit of Geograph or Google Maps, and then go and look at it. And it could be somewhere that nobody else has ever been to. That's quite a thrilling thing about it.
Yeah. Cat Burton says, can people who've rated self-flying hire the aeroplane?
I'm afraid not. Insurance would just be phenomenal. Insurance is phenomenal at the moment. Even in Canada, I think you need a minimum of 100 hours to actually rent something if you can. But plenty of people get the rating and then they come back to renew it, and we'll go off and do some adventure flying, and you'll have myself or Stuart. We'll effectively, we could be an instructor, or we could be the safety pilot, if your rating's valid, and take you to places that if you were a beginner with 12 hours having passed your test, that you probably wouldn't consider going into. And as we always say, it's a license to learn. I think between Stuart and I've got 1,500-1,600 hours of floats. Stuart's got a fair amount as well, so there's a lot of knowledge there, and we want to pass that on, because that if you're just normally flying a fixed wing aircraft, come up for a day, come and do 4 hours flying, you will go away knowing a lot more about the way the wind and the waves. You'll find yourself flying over water and actually looking to see where the wind's coming from, and it builds much more of an awareness of the environment, I think. It's a good skill to have. I think every airline should actually put all the pilots through it, because Sully, at the end of the day, he had a seaplane rating, and I often wonder, as he's approaching the Hudson, if he's looking at it with the eyes of a seaplane pilot, looking at the wind and reading that and making that judgment, just automatically. So,
question from Paul Fraser. What's your fancy seaplane, Hamish?
Can I have a wee think about that, and I'll get back to you.
Come back to that one.
Yeah, you think about it. So Nick Allen says, is there a seaplane rating for Alappo?
Now, if Stuart was here, Stuart is the expert on rules and regulations. I've got a feeling that there didn't used to be, but there is now, or it might be that there wasn't one for the NPPL and there is now. I can't promise to say yes, but seaplane rating for the Alappo. I'll write that down and
drop an email to the
to the email on the screen.
Yeah, we've just flashed up your email address.
Yes,
so,
that's it. info@scotlandonfloats.com, and that's the website as well, scotlandonfloats.com. I haven't updated the website for the last year because obviously there's not been very much happening for the last year. Or we were too busy doing ratings last year to update the website. But that's my mission for the week. Okay.
Good stuff. Right. Michael Ward says, have you ever had to water taxi to safety?
No, I've had to land on the water because the weather's been really, really poor. And if I was in a PA-28, I would have been bricking myself because I wouldn't have had anywhere to go. But there's been really bad weather. There's been a pub that I've known about. So I've landed, pulled onto the beach, gone in for lunch, looked at the weather radar, the weather's gone past, and then I've scooted out before. So I've not really had to weather taxi for safety. At the end of the day, if the water's so rough and you don't need to go somewhere, I wouldn't put the aeroplane through that. It's a balance of, do we really, really need to go here?
Yeah. And how does it behave differently just flying around in the sky? I guess it just behaves like a heavier Cessna.
It's very stable because the floats do kind of give it a certain pendulum stability, and it's got a permanent 15-mile-an-hour headwind. It's got a couple of headwind generators on board. And she's she's actually very agile. I do air displays. I've got a display authorization, and I've done displays at Shuttleworth and the Scottish Air Show, and I chuck it around with steep turns, wing overs, and then a few splash and goes, and folk that look at it and say, "Wow, I didn't realise that it could be quite so agile," which is quite nice when you get feedback like that. So for a Cessna 172, it's a Reams rocket, so it's got 210 horsepower, so it's good. It packs a wee punch, and she turns corners quite fast.
A constant speed prop, or is that fixed?
It is a constant speed prop, yes. Yeah.
Excellent. Right.
Continental IO360D on the engine.
Brilliant. Right, I'm just looking through the comments to see if we've got any.
I think we've got no
questions.
Did you figure out what your fancy seaplane might be?
Yeah, there's some in the comments from people.
There's some suggestions.
Now, there was a Spitfire on floats. They used to have the Marine Aircraft Experimental Establishment. It moved up to the Clyde during the war, and I'm interested in the history of the old flying boats and stuff that have been up and down in the Clyde, and I dug out and found at the record office in Kew the pilot's notes for this Spitfire on floats, which included spinning it from 6,000 feet. And
wow.
I actually met somebody. I was doing a historical thing, and I met somebody who said that they'd seen a Spitfire on floats spinning over Helensburgh, and I was like, "Oh, I've read the notes about the person that was in the cockpit doing that at the time." So I thought, and reading it, I can actually picture myself being there. You put the power on, the aircraft swings left. You need full rudder. You go up, nose comes up. You go onto the step, and it swings left again. And I can feel it exactly just what the test pilot wrote. So it'd be kind of interesting to have a Spitfire. I think it did 360 miles an hour, 370 miles an hour.
So we can only hope that you win the lottery, Hamish, and maybe you can get a Spitfire and some floats and make that happen.
Yeah, I hope so. There's a project we want to rebuild a Schneider Supermarine S5, I think. I'm not sure how far that's going.
Yeah, there's a project to build a replica, isn't there? I think
that's right. Yeah. We put one of the test pilots through the rating last year, so that'll be interesting.
Very good.
Nice.
I'm going to need to swap Darren for Hamish because I'm just looking at the time. Just to make sure that we don't run out of time too early, as it were. So let me just thank Hamish. Move over to Darren. Put Hamish back in the sidebar. Back to you, Johnny.
Hello, Darren. Right. First question. How many clocks do you own?
That's a good question,
clocks, he said.
In the office, the one that's behind me, wherever, is the only one that's in here at the moment, unusually. And the astute viewers would have noticed that it's not actually turning because there's no battery in it at the moment. And the workshop is full of clocks with no batteries in them. So you walk in the office and you still don't know what time it is because no one's spinning around.
Brilliant. What's the fan blade over your other shoulder?
Hasn't everybody got an RB211 fan blade sat in their office? That's from a TriStar, ex Air Force TriStar. That's actually going off to Cincinnati. Well, as soon as the client pays for it, but sometime in the not too distant future.
Wow. So, in terms of getting hold of this stuff, is it like the odd text message and phone call to say, "Oh, this is being scrapped. You can come and get some bits," or how does that all work?
It's a combination of everything, really. Some stuff we buy on eBay. I've picked up stuff at car boot sales, but certainly for the big scrapping stuff, obviously during the pandemic, BA retired the 747 fleet, and that's the early 777s have gone now as well. So we've built up relationships with the companies that are scrapping these down at St Athan and over at Kemble and other places. And yeah, it's just a case of knowing where to look, really. We need to end up taking a van load of all sorts of stuff that we can't really use to get some of the good bits in it, but it's great fun ferreting around old airfields and piles of scrap.
Yeah, and what's the kind of proportion of bits that you make and then sell versus bits that people come to you and say, "I fancy this, can you make it for me?"
Well, the last year there's been a huge amount of 747 stuff. Obviously, that's really kept us going. Although there's been a lot of word of mouth kind of commission work there, but we're just starting to see the 747 work tail off slightly and getting back into the commission. So there's a cocktail bar and a few other bits and pieces in the workshop at the moment that we're working on. It's been really good to get back to some of the more artistic stuff that we've been able to do, and some GA things as well. We've done various light aircraft bits and pieces over the years, and it's good to get back to doing some of that.
Yeah,
probably about half and half, I would say normally.
Right. I'm just going to flash up one of these. How much work kind of goes into this? Do you get more than the sort of airframe that we can see, and then do you whittle it down and make it, make the edges all nice, and then?
Yeah, so those are all 747. We've been buying those in 4 or 5 window sections, and when I say window sections, quite literally cut from the side of the fuselage in a fairly agricultural way. We either collect them, or though during the pandemic we've been taking deliveries of these. So we've had a couple of pallets of these turning up at the workshop every fortnight or so. We then need to trim them down, take off the ribs, and then obviously strip and polish. And the amount of work that goes into it really, it varies from airframe to airframe. Some of them have stripped really easily, some of them have polished really easily, others have been an absolute nightmare. So until you strip the paint, you really don't know what you're coming up against. But it's not a job. We just mess around with cool stuff in the workshop, and people like it as much as we do and buy it. So it pays the bills. I'm absolutely loving it.
Yeah. So Nick Allen says, what would be your fantasy fragment?
I think the thing we get asked for all the time is Concorde. Everybody wants a piece of Concorde, and when it retired, BA actually sold off a lot of the spares and lots of bits and pieces. That stuff is like hen's teeth now, all really, really expensive. And then, of course, it's the iconic aeroplanes, Spitfires, Hurricanes, stuff like that. Occasionally, bits and pieces do come up, but the more public awareness of the aircraft, the greater the price tends to be to acquire it in the first place. Yeah. But for a lot of GA customers, it's their aeroplane. Can you get me a bit of a Cherokee or a Cessna? It's great. We love doing that sort of stuff.
So if they have an aeroplane and they say, "Can you get me a bit?" and you walk over to their aeroplane with an angle grinder, do they get panicky?
I do see some quite concerned faces when I turn up on airfields these days and check the pockets before I leave. Yeah.
Have you been banned from any museums?
Well, I didn't get invited to Johnny's party on the 747 the other week. I don't think they trust me when they're down at Kemble not to walk away with.
I could have pictured you turning up with a toolkit and all sorts.
do you mean that, Johnny? There.
That's the one.
No, that's Sully, isn't it?
What you can't see there actually is I had 16 stripes on. I did a Paul Bertorelli, and I had 16 stripes on my shoulder. Oh, right.
Were you dancing late into the night, Johnny?
Yeah. Morning. The less said about that, the better. Right, let's look at something big. What's that from?
So that was actually a client supplied. It's an Embraer 145, which we stripped and polished for him. And there's I think that's a Blenheim propeller on the left, and then that's an RB. So that's a CFM56 blade on the right. So a real collector there up in Scotland. Actually, we delivered those up to Edinburgh, and as I say, this is the job. Making stuff like that is just fun, and I'm lucky enough that my other half's an air trafficker, so I get away with murder, and there's quite a lot of shiny airplane bits and pieces lurking around in our house most of the time.
So what's if it's not a secret, what's the most expensive piece you've ever made?
Well, we've got a lovely table made from a Stearman wing, which is yours for the princely sum of £36,000. But it's genuinely for me not about the money side of things. I'm equally as happy to make a £14.99 key ring from a piece of 747 that a 15-year-old enthusiast can buy with their pocket money. Some of our stuff is really expensive because although we're buying it at scrap value, we're spending an awful lot of time doing it. What you're paying for is our time. It can take the clock that's behind me. That's really a week's worth of polishing by the time you've gone over it on several occasions, and that's a week's worth of wages and rent we need to cover, really. But as I say, we want to try and make sure that nothing goes to waste. So even the little offcuts get melted down, made into earrings and cufflinks, and very little goes in the bin. So there's an environmental angle to that as well, really, which is pretty strange, seeing as we're doing with aeroplanes.
Yeah. So people can go to your website, I guess. That's the best way of seeing what your stock is, and
social media. Drop us a line. People have got bits of aeroplanes lurking in the back of their hangar or something that they want something done with. Drop us a line. Get in touch. We'd love to help.
You told me my barbecue and fire pit was solid titanium.
Yeah, the warranty is now invalid on your barbecue because you put handcuffs on it and set fire to it the moment we delivered it.
Did we get that video?
We have this one that Darren sent through.
From a tornado, polished up for a tornado pilot, and now living in his kitchen, which is pretty cool. We did a lot of tornado work when that retired.
Looks like an extractor fan or something.
But it was just above a radiator. Actually, we did wonder if the convection from the radiator would be enough to turn it around. In fact, need to check that with the client whether that happens.
So, were you actually really good at DIY and stuff before you started this, or have you been learning as you go?
No, not at all. I kind of had a bit of a background. My dad's an engineer. I studied technology at A level, but then did nothing even remotely physical for the rest of my career as an air trafficker and then as an airport manager. But my business partner is also good. Darren is one of these naturally gifted, talented people with an eye for design and can turn his hand at anything. So I am back in the workshop every so often now doing bits and pieces like making the tea and sweeping the floor. So I've always had an interest, and it's good to be doing stuff. I do get my hands dirty from time to time, cut some of the knuckles and stuff like that, but it's hugely rewarding to just step back at the end of the day with something that you've made in your hands and say, well, yeah, I did that. It's very, very different from air traffic, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at all the traffic jam down at Alpha 2 and going, look, I did that. Brilliant. Well, I think, unless anyone's got anything else, it's probably time to move on before we run out of time for everything. Unless, have you got any other questions or anything for Darren? No? Good. Well, in that case...
Very good. So before we move on, Johnny, you've been rumbled. Your dad says your mum wants to know if he's drinking booze on air. Be careful what your answer is, son.
This beard's got to come back because I feel really young now.
Johnny, your mum's outside. She's come to pick you up from the dance.
You've got to go home now.
Oh God!
So it's time for Fancy Hangar, and picking up on the air racing workshops that were talked about earlier in the news. We decided we'd go looking in the classifieds for a piston aircraft that we fancied racing for a season. So I know there's some good choices tonight. Who is first?
Mr. Corderwood is first.
Right. No, I wasn't sure it'd meet the minimum speed limit actually. So you've got to be able to fly at least 100 miles an hour for a lap. So anyway, I've chosen a Pilatus P206. Now I can hear you saying, "What on earth is that?" It's a Pilatus, obviously, and the reason I like Pilatus is because they look as though they're carved out of a solid billet of unobtainium, and it just looks so fantastic. It's also got up front a V12 engine. Now, I think the fact that it's made so well and it's got a V12 means it'd be a fantastic aeroplane to turn up at an air race with. It is quite fast, but that's not really the point. As long as you can, with the air racing series, the air racing championship, it's not so much how fast you go as being consistent in the speed. So you don't have to be the fastest, you just have to be consistent. And I think this, it's a warbird as well. I should mention it's an actual warbird operated by the Swiss Air Force. So I think that would be a great aircraft to fly in an air race.
Can the Swiss have warbirds? Is
Ooh,
it not a neutral bird?
Peace birds.
How much is it for sale for then, Dave?
It's going for $180,000 or best offer.
Oh, that's not too shabby, is it, for a V12 polished?
It's not exactly a looker, but each to their own.
Right. $180,000. When you finish with it, Darren can turn it into like 3 clocks and you get your money back.
Yeah, get a good price on a clock, Dave, for that. Just take the angle grinder straight to that, no problem at all.
And it won't need much polishing.
I have to be careful when I park it at Gloucester, then, won't I?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm next. I went for, and you're right. I think air racing, Hamish, it's true, because it's handicapped and you all set off at different times. I think the idea is that if everyone flies so they're handicapped perfectly. Then everyone crosses the finish line at the same time. But
absolutely, and the handicappers they do an excellent job. They've got some fancy software, and it's quite an exciting finish when everybody sort of starts approaching the line at the same time at the end of the race.
Absolutely. So, despite the fact that in which case, you could, you came second, 8 seconds behind the person who finished, and you would have set off early on in the race with your 172 on floats and built-in headwind, I guess. So even though it's not about that, I kind of decided to pick an airplane that actually went fast, so you could actually spend your whole race taking off almost last, if not last, and then just trying to overtake people. So I chose the Swearingen SX300. So 300 horsepower, a wing the size of my little finger, 250 knots, absolutely stunning, beautiful handling, slightly complicated and weird looking gear that I'm not entirely sure I trust permanently. But I reckon SX300, this particular one's not for sale, but there is one for sale for just $288,000, which I think is a bargain. Minor problem in that you probably couldn't operate it in the UK, but it's a fantasy anyway. So maybe Francis or whoever's taken over from Francis will say, as it's your fantasy, you can have it.
Fill your boots. Fantasy permit.
Fantasy permit. We get fantasy. Yeah, fantasy permit. Absolutely. So I reckon that'll be an exciting airplane, catching people up and overtaking all the time.
Very
Ed,
good. I like that choice. Very good. Who's next?
You're next, Ed.
I'm up next, am I? Well, I thought, the whole 3 hours and with the whole British racing history and things like that, I would go for something a bit vintage. And so looking in the classifieds in New Zealand, I found this for sale. So a very British and elegant 1939 Percival Proctor. And the nice thing about this one is it's been restored and it's had all the little aerodynamic tweaks that are on the Vega Gull. So it's just that little bit prettier. It's got 6,000 hours on it, but only 280 hours since it was completely restored. It's got a 210 horsepower Gypsy Queen. That's a straight six engine, makes an absolutely gorgeous sound. 140 knots. Should get to overtake a few people, but otherwise going to and from races, and just having a nice time in a real classic, lovely aeroplane. So this one's up for sale for £300,000, which is quite punchy. So, but beautifully restored, I'd go for that. And hey, it's fantasy, isn't it? So
£300,000 is quite a lot, isn't it?
That's it.
It's quite a lot. So, Johnny, you're up next.
Yeah, I've gone for the GB, the QED2, which is for sale through Platinum. Oh God, that is brilliant. I need to make that.
I don't think that's the real GB that Johnny picked, is it, Ian?
I think it is, isn't it? No,
is it? Yeah.
Oh,
it's identical.
Yeah. There we go.
Oh God, there she is. Yeah, so she's for sale for $499,000 on Platinum Fighters. It's a beast of a machine,
GB, isn't it, Johnny?
Sorry,
this is the giant GB.
Yeah, so this was the one that was built by Jim Moss. And they spent, I think it was 50,000 man hours building it. It's got a big Wright 1820, which is about 1,400 horsepower. And the original was, I think, 650 horsepower. So an absolute monster. 2 seats. Looks gorgeous. Probably an absolute handful. But I think it'd be a good machine to race. And funnily enough, actually, whilst looking on Platinum Fighters, they do have a Luscombe, Dave. The Phantom 1, which has a top speed of 140-ish knots, so you could have picked that.
Oh, right. Yes, very pretty. Real handful on the ground, a bit like Johnny's GB, because I heard rumour that someone on the British airshow scene was actually interested in the QED. They talked to a couple of the people that had flown it, and then decided it was probably not for them.
Oh.
How many hours has that flown?
Not many.
Not many. It looks quite scary. You'd be quite intimidated, wouldn't you? Sitting in that.
It's a bit like going air racing in the Albert Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah. 55 hours.
55 hours. And probably more fear has been absorbed into that structure over those 55 hours than a Cessna 172 over 6,000 hours of student solos.
Darren
Lewington's up next.
So, look at that trousered undercarriage.
Yeah.
It is pretty impressive, isn't it? Oh, sorry, wrong one again.
That is my new favourite image of Johnny, I think. That I do know that.
Yeah, I think we'll
need to shave the beard off for the photo, though. Definitely.
Yeah.
Coming in with a very strong.
Clearly, saving the best.
Here is Darren's aeroplane. Darren,
saving
what
the
have you
best
gone
for
for?
last. It's a Pereira Osprey. Now, the ad said this isn't the one that's for sale, evidently, because the ad says that I can buy 2 of these for 20 grand, which pretty much looks like I can buy a box of bits. But look at it. It's beautiful. It's absolutely stunning. And it's got the advantage, inspired by Hamish, to plonk it down in the water if you need be. All right, it's not the greatest performer. I'm not going to be setting off far behind Hamish in the Cessna. But look at it. Look at those lines. Look at that shape. It's just a thing of beauty. And I really am quite seriously tempted to investigate a little further. Although, as I say, the ad doesn't look anywhere near as pretty as that. It looks more like a box of bits that used to be 2 aeroplanes. I think it's sort of buy one get one free special offer. But nevertheless, imagine fantasy complete. We put it all back together, and it looks like that. It's wonderful.
And there, if ever you wondered, is proof that beauty really is in the eye of the beholder, because it's not in anybody else's.
There's 2 good points about Darren's. One is that he'd have to come and do a seaplane rating. The other one is it's faster on the water, I think, than it is in the air.
130 miles an hour, so it just about qualifies. I'll be okay with that.
That is probably there's enough drag on that for that to be 130 miles an hour straight down, I reckon.
Still a step up from the Cub, so yeah, going to break myself.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. Which just leaves us Hamish's choice. So, Hamish, what did you go for?
Well, you mentioned that in the racing, I'm always the slowest in the race. We've been doing it for 6 years now, and I've only ever overtaken 1 aeroplane. So I thought this time I'm going to overtake everybody. So I've gone for the North American F-82, or the twin Mustang, which is obviously it's very COVID secure as well because you're socially distant from the navigator. And in the right hand seat, I would take the right hand seat because seemingly you can't do all the functions from the right. You don't have a radio, so I wouldn't have to speak to air traffic controllers. But 1944, it was on sale for $12 million. And I think it's actually been reduced now to 10 million. 451 miles an hour. And basically, it probably sounds like a Mosquito because it's got a couple of Merlins up front. Not as pretty as the Mosquito, obviously. That's, I think that would be a lot of fun. The nearest thing you could get to flying 2 Mustangs in close formation.
And I'm guessing if you ever had a pylon cut, you could argue where you were sat, and it's like, no, my cockpit was definitely inside the pylon.
Yeah, the only thing is I'm not quite sure, what the single engine performance on that is. I don't know if it would just be like roll left or roll right, and jump
Probably
out.
best not to think about that.
Yeah.
No.
What have we got in the comments then?
As Paul Cadell says, Ace, you wouldn't have to put up with Derek's dodgy aftershave, Hamish.
That's right. Yep. Very true.
Well, the order, I have to say the viewers are being fairly quiet on picking winners. Really, we've had
Choice from Kia.
Yeah, Kia. I would have looked to see if there was a Monocoop 110 special, but I couldn't find one for sale, sadly. So, what do we got?
There must be some votes for Ian Wins in there somewhere.
There was an Ian Wins so far, but that was when you were second and only after Dave. So
I've got 2 wins there.
Ian Wins. Aviator Steve said I'd pick a Mughal. You try finding one for sale. Mark Litherman says +1 for Ian's.
Thank you.
Paul Fraser Bennett said, "Oh God, Ed wins again."
I can't believe there are no votes for the Osprey. It's beautiful.
I'm surprised. I am surprised.
20 grand as well. It's the cheapest one.
The only votes from the Osprey would be from the person trying to sell it.
Apparently, the audience has gone mad now because we've got Dave wins. Nick Allen didn't see anyone else enter. Hamish wins. Hamish wins. Ed wins. Dave wins. Ian wins. Hamish, Ian, Hamish, Hamish. I think it's Ed again. Hamish. I think it might be a Hamish win. I'm disturbed by the lack of Darren wins.
Christine wins.
I'm not even sure who Christine is.
Try going into Netherthorpe in a twin Mustang. Okay.
Oh yeah. Well, you could probably get in once.
Kristen's my other half. She runs Netherthorpe. Basically.
Okay.
Very well. And I'm guessing she's on here tonight. Yes.
Johnny, for me, just for the spectacle. That's true. Yes.
Yeah. Let's see that again.
Yes. I like your little tiny arms there, Johnny.
I know. I was just looking at those.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Fantastic.
2 Merlins. Hamish wins.
I think we're probably going to have to give that win to Hamish.
I think that is a true win, and especially as it comes at such an economical saving. You know, a whole 20% off. You know,
save 2 million quid. Yeah.
Just on the subject of 2 Merlins, there's a fantastic book, Canadian guy, and it's completely forgotten. I've forgotten his name. Used to fly Catalinas across the Atlantic, but he bought a Mosquito at the end of the war to race the Mosquito in air racing. Don McVicker. He did quite a few flying books, but he bought a Mosquito to race it, painted it yellow.
Nice.
That would have been a sight to see, I think.
Very much so. Mikey says, can Johnny pedal fast enough to take off?
Absolutely not.
We'll have to try.
Yeah, give it a go. And Darren, much as you're an honoured guest, and thank you very much for bidding and along with Hamish to win that. I'm afraid you came last in the Fantasy Hangar competition.
Quite spectacularly. Yeah.
I feel we might have to crowdfund your purchase of the projects of A4s.
Yeah, I've got 50p. Good. Okay. Well, time to move on. So, what have we got left, Johnny? Tell people why. Oh no, I got it wrong again. Sorry, apologies. Even though we do rehearse, I got it wrong. Dave, what's coming up?
Right. Well, there's no fly-ins just yet, but they start in April, and at Compton Abbas from the 2nd of April, they start their series of Vintage Saturdays. This is the first Saturday of each month. It's a kind of loose fly-in at Compton. Lovely place to go. Also on the same day, 2nd of April, Bodmin start their season with the Porsche Club and Vintage Aircraft Day. Just today, I got the list from the British Aerobatics about their full season of aerobatic competition. For the last 2 years, the aerobatic competition season has been completely disrupted for obvious reasons. But they start on the 9th and 10th of April, and the first event is at Dunstable. It's a gliding one, actually, but after that, there's a whole season, including the World Aerobatic Championships later this year. The final event I want to mention...
like the Duke of York and Prince Charles or something, with the winner taking away an honour or something. No, I shouldn't go there. Okay.
I think I should try and not go down that particular rabbit hole. Anyway, so the last event I'm going to mention now is Pilot Careers Live in London on April the 9th. If you know anybody who wants to take up flying as a career.
Absolutely. And of course, there's the 3 hours thing later on that month in Popham, which we might have to pop along and see how it's going.
Yeah.
Good.
Come and
Johnny.
see Ham at Popham.
Yeah. Go and see Hamish at Popham.
Captain Ham.
Yeah. So club members, new mag out. We've got vouchers Audley End, Easter, Fenland, and Fife for April, and we've also got Greeners, Mark Greenfield, lined up for a webinar. He's going to be doing one on GA UPRT. So I think we're up to 7 or 8 webinars now. So the first one was looking like it will be Dave White in the not too distant future to talk about flying further than Le Touquet. So we'll keep you updated on when that's going to start. And if you're not a club member, you won't get any of that. So join before too long because the price is going to go up. So you can join from £7.50 per quarter now.
Absolutely. It's really good. Hamish, I meant to ask on your 172, what's the takeoff performance on that hard runway? How much does that change compared to a normal one?
It's got kind of smaller wheels, sort of high pressure wheels, but it's still off the ground pretty quick. I would say it's the same as a 170, same as a Williams rocket. You know, I could be off the ground 120 meters, 150 meters maybe, depending how heavy
wow.
I am.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay,
It's
wow,
pretty good. It's
interesting.
pretty good performance. I go in and out of mall all the time. I just like to say on the comments, somebody's accused me of drinking rosé, and that I'm sorry, because that's hold on there. Not rosé. Yes. I don't know who Trent 772 is, but
that's all right. I know who that is, and I can send you his personal details.
Does look a bit like rosé though.
I know where you live.
I'm on the fizzy water.
Brilliant. I think that's about it. So thank you very much, everyone. We've overrun by 10 minutes, which is not too bad considering everything that we've crammed in tonight. Thank you. I hope your airplanes are tied down. If they're not, get up early and make sure they are tied down. Otherwise, probably not much flying this weekend. So enjoy the new issue. Go and have a read at the new issue. If you're not a member of the club, sign up. If you're watching this on Catch Up, give us a like, give us a join, subscribe to the magazine and to our YouTube channel and all the rest of it. So thank you very much, everyone, and see you
Hamish, Darren,
next.
thank you very much.
Okay. Yep. Thank you, Hamish. Thank you, Darren. See you soon.
Pleasure.
Bye.